morning, everyone. This is Beth Bond, Curator of Sustainable News at Southeast Green, and I am incredibly honored and very excited to have Dr. Stephen Smith with us this morning on Speaking of Green. Dr. Smith is known throughout the Southeast for his leadership at Southern Alliance for Clean Energy, and we could talk for our entire 30 minutes about all he wants to do, but I am a woman on a mission this morning, and we are going to talk about what's going on in Florida with solar, or as Dr. Smith likes to refer to it as the Florida Solar Wars. Welcome to the show.
Great. Well, thank you, Beth. It's an honor to be with you, and I look forward to talking more about getting more solar in the Sunshine State.
It's so ironic that we have to say it that way. Let's do a little bit of background. Right. Okay, right? So tell people where we are and why this is just so confounding that there's not more solar in Florida.
Well, here are some basic facts. Florida now is the third largest state in the United States with population. It is the largest energy market in the United States that does not have a coherent energy plan or supportive policies on renewable energy and clean energy. It has the best solar resource east of the Mississippi, and it is a phenomenal opportunity for moving forward on clean energy to not only grow the market, bring jobs, help the industry grow and flourish, but also to help Florida with the challenges of climate change, because Florida is literally on the front line with places like the Everglades and Miami and other areas facing serious saltwater intrusion issues, non-rain flooding events. This is a real challenge for Florida, and so having a coherent and rational policy on clean, renewable energy with an emphasis on solar power is a missing link that we need in our overall energy portfolio. And for us in the Southeast, North Carolina's moved forward on solar, Georgia's moving forward on solar, and yet the largest market potential in the Southeast is the Sunshine State, which is Florida.
It's starting to be a little embarrassing for Florida, and of course, I think the key words is rational policy, and
right.
Rational policy would imply that you have rational leadership, and the current governor has proven to be pretty much completely unrational about this. His unofficial sort of official stance is natural gas will solve all our issues. And I've been following this issue for a long time, as you know, and I've been in the state and heard discussions about solar, and of course we've heard a lot up here in Atlanta about solar. And I always walk away shaking my head, like, what is going on here? What is the resistance? Especially when you have the utility companies. You've got a Southern company with Gulf Power. You've got Progress, which is owned by Duke, which has sort of stepped back from solar in North Carolina, but still, has pretty much supported it for a long time. You've got NextEra, which is a wind energy leader in the Midwest, who owns the largest utility in the state. And why is the battle so fierce and strong with the utilities?
Well, you can basically go right where you were going, which is currently the large investor-owned utilities, so that's Florida Power and Light, the subsidiary of NextEra, Duke Energy, Gulf Power, and Tampa Electric, have literally had a stranglehold on the political and regulatory process in Florida, and they have stifled and held back the ability for solar to flourish in the state. They have argued that, one, it's not cost effective. They've said, well, we're not the Sunshine State, we're the partly cloudy state, and they've come up with all these very lame and not factually based arguments for why we should not have Florida move forward aggressively on solar power. They have done some things. There's probably about a couple of 100 megawatts of solar that has been developed. There's a few more 100 megawatts that are in the pipeline. But when you compare it to someplace like North Carolina, which has now done over 1,000 megawatts or a gigawatt of solar deployment, Georgia is on the trajectory to hit 1,000 megawatts in the next 18 months or so, you see that Florida is lagging very far behind, but yet it has a much greater potential. It is because the utilities really have wanted to put as much emphasis on natural gas and get as much development of natural gas as possible. They've also pursued, to a fault, the support of nuclear power, although they've had to admit recently that they can't get some of these plants online. And now Florida is trending towards 70% dependent on natural gas with additional gas plants in the pipeline. And the state is going to probably exceed 75, trend towards 80% dependent on natural gas. And that is an irrational policy because it puts literally all your eggs in one basket, and it is not good for the state. They've gutted their energy efficiency programs, and they've rolled back the solar rebate program, and now they're setting up to go after net metering. Florida does have a decent net metering law, and there's about 12,000 net metered customers in the state of Florida right now. But for a state of 20 million, that is a pitifully small number when you look at someplace like New Jersey, much smaller state, having 4 times that. So what we're trying to do is get good policies in moving in Florida. We've identified, the Southern Alliance for Clean Energy, working with the solar industry and others, has identified 3 policies that really need to happen. They are the pillars of making solar work. And the first one is we've got to protect the net metering provisions in Florida. They're absolutely critical. They are a foundation of which particularly the distributed solar and the rooftop solar for residential and commercial needs to be protected. The other thing is we need to have good tax policy. And Florida doesn't have a state income tax, but they do have a very regressive property tax regime. And so dealing with commercial property tax and what's called tangible personal property tax are very important. And then the third is we've tried to open up third-party sales to allow more competition where solar companies can sell electricity. Florida is one of only 4 states in the United States that explicitly prevents third-party sales of solar electricity. So those are the 3 pillars, and those are what we have been working very aggressively on. We think that Florida can basically do a lot more with efficiency and renewables and particularly with solar because it's such a powerful resource. And that's why these solar amendments are so critical that are being brought before the voters in Florida in the coming months. And in order to have good policy, you would hope that the state legislature and the State Public Service Commission would step forward and actually advance these policies. But unfortunately, because of the stranglehold the utilities have, that's not happening. But that's why we have moved outside of the legislature and outside of the Public Service Commission and have engaged in taking some of this directly to the voters. That's what we did last year with our third-party sales amendment, solar amendment. The utilities, that was called Floridians for Solar Choice, and it was an effort to open third-party sales. The utilities dumped literally millions of dollars, ran a very deceptive campaign, created a false ballot that they put out that misled voters and continues to mislead voters as a way to block what we were doing, and now to date have spent over $15 million opposing us and trying to get this, what we call a monopoly wolf in solar sheep's clothing. It's a deceptive ballot that will be on in November. When they blocked us on this choice amendment, we'd created so much awareness in Florida, we were able to go through the state legislature and get a tax abatement for these property taxes. And the only way you can get a tax abatement in Florida is you have to put it on the ballot. And so we have that on the ballot, and that is going to be on the ballot in August, and that's called Amendment 4, and it is a tax abatement. So yeson4.org is the website, and it is a tax abatement to reduce taxes which help lower the cost for solar for everyone. And so this is coming up in August. Florida voters will be able to vote for a good solar amendment in August, yes on 4. And then the utilities are running this deceptive ballot, in November. And so we're saying no in November, N-O in November on Amendment 1, because that is actually really a stealth attack on net metering and trying to undermine the ability for customer-owned solar. And so that's the solar wars that we have going right now.
Well, and I will make a personal appeal because my cousin listened to me talk so much about solar. He's actually down in the greater Orlando area, and every time I go to visit, he loves to show me how much he's making off net metering. So he will be very happy to know that he's about to lose that if we don't get the vote right. So what can we do? What are the best ways for people who are really interested in this to get this message out to Florida voters?
Well, the first thing we need to do is people need to understand that we're rapidly coming up on the state primary election, which is the election day is actually August 30th. Vote by mail petition ballots go out the first week of August. Early voting is the 20th through the 27th. So the whole month of August, people in Florida are going to be voting on solar. They need to vote yes on Amendment 4, and they can go to the website yesonfor.org, and they can get information.
And people should just not underestimate the power of social media on this issue either, because I've seen a little bit of press coming out of Florida, but not a tremendous amount. Is there for our Florida listeners where? I mean, I know the sites have information, but I mean, if they want to get press on this to see, what people are, elected officials are saying on this stuff, where should they be looking for information on that?
Well, there's a both yes on 4 have very active Facebook presence, and Floridians for Solar Choice has a very strong Facebook following, and there's a lot of good information that is posted up there literally daily for people to follow. So if you're if you do Facebook, that's a very active social media site. There's also Instagram and other vehicles, and Twitter. We're using all those social media platforms. And again, if people are interested in getting more information, we have people in the field that are actually spread out throughout the state, and we can tap people into a very strong volunteer network where people can get very involved very quickly, because there's an extensive network of people that are working. It's very much of a grassroots campaign. The utilities are dumping a ton of money. They've bought a lot of airtime in the fall where they're going to come in with these really slickly produced ads to make Amendment 1 look like it's great for solar and great for Florida customers, when it's actually the exact opposite. And so it is the most deceptive campaign I have ever seen in my life, run by the utilities to literally mislead people in Florida. And that's why it's going to be so important that we push back and people band together to get the truth out.
So if people want someone to come speak to their church, or if they want them to come speak
Absolutely.
to the Rotary Club or Chamber of Commerce,
Yep.
or whatever, not that the Chamber nationally has been really great on energy policy, but so there are speakers available to come.
We have a speakers bureau. We have a speakers bureau. We have a whole network, and we can easily integrate people into this volunteer network that we built. And you'll find a lot of kindred spirits, and you'll find people in your area in Florida that are already working on it. And if for some reason you don't, we can provide all the supporting material to give anyone who wants to do stuff in their community. We have information. We've got all the kinds of things that people need to be able to hand out and share with their friends and family, and then whatever social networks they have. So it's a very robust grassroots activity that's going on. And again, Amendment 4 is not controversial. There's actually no opposition to it. So the August vote has been kind of cruising along at a relatively low level. There's a lot of controversy about Amendment 1, and I think you'll see more and more press on that. There was an enormous amount of press last year in the fight that we had over the third-party sales one. And what happened was the amendment they used to trip us up as a blocker amendment, where they went out in the street and actually told people to sign their petition and said that it was ours, said it was the Florida Choice petition, but they lied and misled to people about getting these things signed. They then turned around and now have put it on the ballot. And so this has been an incredibly deceptive campaign from the very beginning that the utilities have run.
What's the one thing that, besides voting, I mean, clearly people need to get out and vote, but what's the one thing that you think can make the difference in regards to sort of turning sort of this tide?
Well, don't be silent. I mean, the real thing here is that we are at a transformative point of time in how we produce and consume energy in this country. We are really seeing dramatic changes happening very, very quickly. Be an informed energy consumer and be an informed energy voter. So don't be silent. And if you're in Florida, it's yes on 4 in August and it's no on 1 in November. You can plug into our networks and we can get you involved.
We are literally, I have run us right up to the end of the time that we have. So I just want to thank you so much for being a guest. And if we can find time, maybe we can have a second interview before the vote in August to see where y'all are and maybe fluff out some more information. But I know your time is very precious and valuable, so thank you for spending it with us today.
Well, thanks for the opportunity, and we look forward to working with you more on this. This is great. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Stephen. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay, y'all got marching orders. 1, social media works. I don't have time to tell you, but we've just had a success in Alabama through a social media campaign on a fish kill. You can find out on Southeast Green about it in the Alabama section. 2, vote. Take your mama, take your husband, take your kids who can vote. Take them to vote and make sure that the utilities do not win on this issue. I unfortunately had to spend a lot of time on our Florida section posting articles about where utilities have won again in Florida, and this is I think the tipping point for Florida voters to stand up and say enough is enough. It's stupid that the Sunshine State is not the solar state. All right. Thanks so much for listening. We will have this up on Southeast Green, and so make sure that people who sort of listen to podcasts, they can listen to this because I think there's a lot of valuable information given, and we appreciate our listeners so much, and we will look forward to talking with you all on the next episode of Speaking of Green.